Hi everybody, hope you're all well and doing great. On behalf of myself, Stephen and Chris from the Collective Awakening podcast, it's an absolutely amazing opportunity because we've got a fabulous guest, Jeanette Greenough, spiritual medium. Thank you very much for agreeing to do this.
Oh, you're welcome. Nice to see you again.
Yes, amazing. So welcome to our Collective Awakening podcast. So I'd like to start off really by saying, how did you get into this work? What you're about,
My true belief is I was meant to come down here and do this work. Easy. I've known from being a very young child, 2 years of age, that I was seeing things, I was experiencing things that other children didn't talk about, very sensitive. I knew that I'd chosen my mum and my dad. No matter what happens in life.
Absolutely.
I'd also chosen this path to go on, and it was just trying to sort it out of why I was seeing things, why I was getting things. And it became later in life where everything started coming together, really. So it was like up to the age of 15 at school, 14, 15, that was the time when I was being bullied at school. And some of my friends could never really understand why I was being bullied, but I was very sensitive to them. I knew when they were having problems. I knew when there was somebody at school that was struggling with something. And I always seemed to be the helper. And then that's when the jealousy came in, because I had this gift with people and I could talk to people. I've never been short of a word, which is good as a spiritual medium because you need that.
Absolutely.
So it was then when I left school, I wanted to leave home, go to work, and that's, I'd actually was married by the time I was a week before my 18th birthday. I was so grown up. If you'd seen some of my photographs when I was 13 and 14, I looked like I was 23, 24.
Wow.
So, it's that I missed all that childhood. I've never been a teenager. I've never been that child inside. But as you get older, I get dafter. So, I think my childhood is now. It's now. Even, so sometimes there's a serious side to a child when they're gifted. And that seriousness came in, having to cope with it, and then sorting out, growing up as a lady, sorting out your personality of what you want. And, instead of being, giving in to everybody all the time, it's trying to sort out, as we've talked about before, we weren't on air, it's trying to sort out what you want as a person. And we always talk about personal responsibility, and you've got a responsibility to yourself of how much spirit work you want to do and how little you want to do. But when you're a giving person and you want to help people, you end up doing too much. Yeah. And then you realise then, hold on a minute, I've got to just backtrack a bit and get Jeanette back.
I think that happens. I think we've all gone through that, haven't we? Because there is a very fine line. We're at service, we're working with spirit, but also something that we realised last year is, what does Stephen want?
Yes.
It's not, sometimes we always expect about spirit, and we respect spirit deeply, and we have that relationship with spirit, but also we're learning, what do we want out of life? And that's just as important as well. Do you not find that as well? It is
very, very important. The first, I will say, from the age of 16 to the age of 25, I was growing then into the lady. I adopted my son, who was 10 weeks old when I was, and he became a big part of my life. And then he was fetched up in the spiritual side of life. So he sees spirit himself.
Wow.
So he's been very lucky because he's been fetched up in the trance side of the healing side, the talking to spirit. So, it's always been there. Other parts of my family, by the way, no. What we're doing here. What we're doing here. Oh, God, Jeanette's off on one again. So I've had all that. And I don't try and prove it to anybody. I go on you're that spiritual medium. I never go to anybody and go, oh, well, there's a lady behind. I don't do none of that. When I'm out, the spirit work stops. When I go on stage or I go on platform in a church, that is when it begins.
And how did you learn about that discipline? Did you, where does that come from then?
That actually came from Albert Road Spiritualist Church, because at that time, I was around the age of 30, 32, and I was seeing spirit. I've got to go back a little bit, actually, because you've triggered a little memory. I was one of the little cocky checkout girls in a co-op shop where they had no trolleys. I know you're younger than me. You could have laughed out. Jeanette's showing her age at this present moment in time.
I was thinking that, no trolleys.
Yeah, no trolleys. And then anybody in my age group will, do you understand that, Jean, that sat in the background? They used to come with the baskets and they'd have the shopping on, and the checkout girls had to have the knowledge of all the tins of everything and how much everything was priced. So they say the first man, and I'll never forget this first man came, and he was in his late 70s and very quiet. And I just used to go like that, and I'd go, right, Bean, and off I was. And in my head straight away, I've got, this man's going home. But he wasn't going home to his home. He was going home to spirit. And I was 16.
Wow.
And then the next lady came. She was expecting a baby. She didn't know it, but I did.
Wow.
And then this is where it gets a little bit worrying, because I'd got such a good heart. The next lady come. She got 4 children, skint, and I used to put the peas and the beans through free. Now I could do that. I know I'm going back a long time, but today I'd be arrested.
Yeah.
Are you with me? So I've helped people in other ways, but they didn't realise what I was doing. So yeah.
So at the time when you were experiencing that, by that stage, is it like, yeah, I know what this is, I'm quite comfortable with it, or was it still a bit, what's going on?
What's going on?
What's this all about?
What's going on? Yeah, even though I was seeing spirit, and as a young child, and I'm going to go to the age of 12, 13, 14 now, there was always somebody looking at me. And there was a loft with a tiny little gap in it, but I knew somebody, I could see eyes, but they were spiritual eyes. And I knew when somebody was around in my bedroom, they were always with me. And there was always this creaking on the stairs. But it was when I was 19 that I was then married to my first husband, and I had an out-of-body experience. And I hadn't suffered with anything to do with my chest or anything, but I'd had a severe asthma attack. And I remember my husband phoning 999. It was in our first terraced house, and the settee was here, and I was laid on the settee. And next minute, I was up in the ceiling with my hands holding onto the ceiling, saying, "What are you doing? I'm ready for this. I've got a lot of work to do." Still not knowing what I was talking about.
Wow.
And then I looked down at the settee, and the 2 ambulance men came in, put the mask on. They said, "You're all right. We're going to get you back, love. We're going to get you back." But the next time I woke up, I was in the Victoria Hospital. So and I woke up and I said to my husband, I said, "I've seen the 2 ambulance men," and he goes, "Oh, here we go again," So, but it's things that happened. And when I went first looking for my first house, before I was talking about this one, I'll never forget it. It was with the Halifax estate agents. The house was in Newhouse Road, near the Martin Institute, that area. And I remember waiting for the estate agent. She'd come with the key. The house was vacant possession, empty. And I went around and I thought, this could be made nice. Went upstairs and there was this ornate bed in the first bedroom. And this lady nodded, and she got a shawl on, and she got her granny socks knitted on her feet and the hat on her head with all the lace. And she just smiled. The estate agent came in. She says, "Do you like it?" I said, "I love it, but when she moved it." And the estate agent went, "Fluff!" And she were gone out the house saying, "Oh my God, I'm not going to come back in here yet. Please don't tell me this." And my husband went at the tab and he went, "Keep your gob shut, what are you doing?" So, but it's one of them things. And to me, it was normal. But the lady was the spiritual lady that obviously lived there. And she was acknowledging that, I was there.
So you've always had that gift then, haven't you?
Always.
Even when you were born, and it seems that it's not a belief, you have this knowing.
Yes.
That when things have happened, you've just known that it was right. But there's a lot going on now about opening up and closing down as mediums, even particularly at night time. What kind of advisement would you give people that want to get into this work?
Right. Well, when you go to bed, there's no need to shut down, because when we go to sleep, we open up with the world of spirit anyway. And I know that sometimes some people, it's like the old advert that they raise up and the body, and then they come down like a ton of bricks in the morning when they land back. So it is, as I see it and what I've acknowledged and learnt, that our bodies do relax, our spirits do come out of our body in a deep sleep, and the spirit will come down to connect to us. And that's when people sometimes dream about going somewhere, sitting on a bench and talking to somebody, but they never see the face, but they know they're talking to somebody. And then sometimes they dream about the person that they have met in the night. They know then, well, I've dreamt about them, but they don't know why they've dreamt about them. Well, obviously, the spirit world are letting them know they are okay and they're looking after you. So the closing down part of it, when you get up in the morning, if you're able to have a shower, water is a very essential thing to the body and the third eye and everything to do with your chakras. So when you get in the shower in the morning, then I ask Spirit World to shut my door for the day with a light of protection around me and a mirror, because you are very sensitive. And I don't want to go off shopping. We'll just advertise Morrison's at the minute. I don't want to go in Morrison's and pick up everybody's feelings in that store. And the world is in a very tough place at the minute. And you've got people worried about finances. They're on drugs. They're on drink. There's divorce going on. There's grieving going on. There's mental issues going on. And I know sometimes when I have forgot before I've gone in a store and I've come out with a massive headache. So it's your personal responsibility to talk to your spirit group, whether you know them or not, is to shut down properly. Your prayers are essential. There's something going on at the minute where people say you don't need a prayer. Of course you do. You've got to open them doors correctly. And it's like today, we don't open up our front door and open our back door and leave everybody coming in.
No, exactly.
It's true, you just wouldn't do it. You'd have nothing left and you'd be dead in the morning. You'd be on the other side.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in that. No matter in what venue you're in, it might be tailored differently.
Correct.
But I like to know who I'm working with.
Correct.
I like to know what's
going
on.
Yeah. So even if we do, just let's say we go somewhere where they don't do prayers, I do my own personal prayer at the side, talk to my group, and then everyone queues up, because your family and friends are going to queue up when they come to me. And vice versa. My family and friends are going to queue up and come through your door. So if you imagine a porthole in the corner of a room, and that door then is opened when we do our prayer, and everyone then comes through. I know my Jeremiah, my doorkeeper, has been looking after me a long, long time. So if anybody sees anybody who looks like Moses, that's the only way I describe him, because he's very tall and a very long white beard. And I know when I see him, I'm safe.
Yeah.
I'm safe. I'm not picking anything up that I shouldn't be doing.
It's good. Very important, fundamental.
Yes, it is.
A lot of people now, we speak a lot about, about protection. What's your your stance on protection? You talk about white lighting and things like that. How important is that to you then?
Very important. I don't think I'd be where I was today without the training that I've had. And you know that Colin was a trance medium. So when I met him and the guides were coming through teaching me, and a lot of people will go in a circle or a closed circle and keep the teachings to themselves. Them teachers aren't for themselves to hide that they know everything. Them teachings were for you to teach others to help them. And that's what the gift is for. And sometimes people have said, oh, why is she called the gift? Is she the best? Not at all. The reason that I was called the gift at the time, because I was going to be on TV at the time, and they said, we need a stage name for you. And my son turned around and said, Mum, you're always going on about the gift. But my gift, I truly believe, is fetching the children that people have lost to their parents. And that actually works an awful lot with me, especially when they come to me privately. Then I try and get the children to them so that they can communicate with them. So the protection side isn't just for me personally. It's for the people that are sitting with me, for the people in the shows, that may have a drink of alcohol, that don't know about protection. We've got to teach protection about Ouija boards.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they're opening up these spiritual doors thinking that And spirit will play on the naughty side. They will play with the Ouija board. They will link into your head and try and, take the mickey out of you. If they took the mickey out of you on the earth plane, they're going to take the mickey out of you in a Ouija board in the spirit side.
Yeah,
so they don't change.
So it's doing this work really in a safe environment, creating a safe environment
for everybody.
Audience, sitter,
everybody.
Whichever way. Yeah.
That's right.
So what about, what I want to touch upon a little bit on that, has posed me an important question about this perception that people have when we go back home to spirit, that sometimes people are dead surprised that, when I do the one-to-one readings and spirit coming through, that their character, their personalities, we have to describe them in that way. If your mum was a little bit rude or she was a bit cutting and maybe didn't have a great relationship, you have to describe them in that way.
That's right.
What part of the personality and character do they still hold then in the spirit world then, on the soul side?
They hold all of it. They're not going to change, but what they have to do, just let's say last night I was working with somebody and the gentleman was very angry on the earth plane and he didn't show, and he was a very stance gentleman, quite tall and quite, what's the word? I can't describe him now. I'm trying to think back out what he was like. Standoffish. He didn't want to show his love. And he also didn't believe in the spirit world. So when he came through last night, the description of the gentleman came forward, and then he said that he didn't believe in all this. And he got such a shock when he got over the other side. And then he realized that he didn't give his love out, and his family didn't know if they loved him or not. Do you understand? Or he loved them. So if he's not shown them love, they wouldn't show love to him. And now it's like trying to build that bridge between the earth plane and the spirit world and fetching that family together. And that's what our job is for. It's the healing. It's the and the protection for them as well.
And the forgiveness being important as well.
Massive.
Have you found that a lot, where people said, "Oh, I don't want to speak to that loved one"? And how do you overcome that then? Do you try to push it? Or?
No, I don't. But what I do say, right, let's, Jeanette, get this in order then. Okay, right. First of all, do you want to try and put it right now while you're here on the earth? And just let's say it's this gentleman, and leave the gentleman where he is, and he can't move on, he can't move forward, he can't do anything else? Or do you talk together, make the bridge, because when you get home to the world of spirit, you're going to have to talk.
Yeah.
So he lets your life go forward, let his life forward, and let's have a bit of fun.
Absolutely. Life's too short. When you go back home to spirit, you're in that place
of
unconditional love. It is.
It's too late.
But then those on the earth plane, we could try to, for us, those on the earth, to let go and forgive as well. It's part of our healing. Yeah. So who decides then? Because I've got loads of questions here. So it's great to get your perspective, because you've done many shows and demonstrations. You've got your guides behind you. Yes. Who decides who gets a message in the audience? Is it the guides? Is it the loved ones? Or is it you?
No, it's spirit world.
Spirit world.
Right. What happens is, just let's say your family's in the world of spirit, and they want to give you a message. Yeah. They have to go to the spirit world. So we do still have bosses that we go to. And they go to the spirit world and say, I want to give a message to Stephen and Chris. What is the reason for it? And then they say, well, the reason is they're struggling at the moment with a situation, we'd like to help. And then it's the one in the audience or the congregation, and they say the message goes to the ones who need it first. And I always say that we've gone to churches and they've gone, oh, she gets a message every week. Yes.
I was just thinking that.
Well, stop linking in. Thank you very much. So it's like, oh, she gets a message every week. Feel sorry for that person. Because if they're getting a message every week, spirit are giving it to them on purpose. Yes. And they're not happy, or there's something going on in their life they can't sort. And it's the connection with the spirit world. When they come and help, they actually then go back and they party, because they've come down to the earth, they've helped the family, and they celebrate. I've been down to the earth plane. I've been down and helped my family today. Because there's a lot of people who don't go into a spiritual connection.
No, they don't. That's true.
So they go and boast. Well, I've spoke to my son and daughter today. I've helped them. So it's sad for the ones who are up there that can't come down. So this is why we get family inviting friends down, because their connection with the spirit world may not be with their family.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And that's interesting because of the readings that I've recently done. I call them postcards.
Yes.
And it's like, you need to pass on to Michelle's mum. Oh yeah, my mum, Michelle's my best friend's mum just died.
That's
and
right.
she's coming in here saying,
That's
will
right.
you pass on a message? Have you had that?
That's happening a lot because that lady, her family's not going to the spiritual connections.
Wow, that's amazing. That's been happening more.
Well, it happened again last night.
Yeah.
And I said, who's such and such? Sorry, I can't think of the name. Who's such and such? And she said, oh, it's my friend. I said, her mum's just passed. And she said, yes. I said, well, her mum's verifying that she's okay. Please let her know.
Wow.
And all of a sudden then that lady may want to go into a church. She may want to go into somewhere where to see a medium, because so many people are scared. Are they going to come home with me, Jeanette, at the end of the night?
I was going to ask you that actually. Earlier when you said about the estate agent doing a runner.
Yes.
It's like, why do you think people get so frightened?
Because they're frightened of the unknown. It's easy to dismiss something when you don't understand it.
Yeah.
And it's like somebody may be frightened of paperwork. Somebody may be frightened of doing something different. And it's the unknown that puts us back. And, the more we learn down here, the easier it is for when we get home to the world of spirit.
Do you think there's a lot of fear of death as well?
Yes, and I take the mickey now, in a nice way, by the way, because I am like that. But last night, and this lady said to me, she said, you've described my mum, Jeanette, but she's living. I said, well, you're all right. She's going to be living when you get home. She's not in my queue. and that's it. And because I say, when your time's your time.
Yeah.
But I've not chosen your time. You've not chosen my time. You've chosen your time when it's your time to go into the world of spirit. So everybody goes, and it's a shame when we lose babies, when we lose children, when we lose grandfathers, granddads, nanas. And it's like, if you can cope, I think at the moment as well, I don't know your opinion, but there's a lot of youngsters going.
A lot of them, yeah.
And this is so good. I don't know if you ever remember me saying, when Wolf used to come through Colin, and he was a trance medium, and Wolf said, this was 1999, he says, on the year 2000 at midnight, there's going to be a parachute drop of babies being born on this earth. And all these babies from the year 2000 will have a higher spiritual connection.
Yeah. Wow, yeah.
So you look at anybody in that age group now, and they're interested in spirit, they're online. They're looking
massive now, isn't it?
Massive, which eventually mediums will not be required. Now, if you think that you've got somebody, we're in the year 20, somebody who's 25 now, and they know about the spirit world and they're not scared about the spirit world, and anybody passes, they're going to be able to cope with it, knowing that they've gone off to the spirit world. There's orbs now on films, cameras, weddings, funerals, christenings. Wow. There's orbs all flying around. We had a dance party one night with the girls when I came back from a party, and all of a sudden we're filming them all dancing in my lounge, and the spirit was absolutely phenomenal.
So what do you mean then in the future mediums won't be required? Because we've heard that here a lot, haven't we? Said in the future there won't be
You won't be needed, because the earth plane, they will have their own connection with the world of spirit. The humanoids, that's what spirit call us, humanoids. And he said all the humanoids will know there's a spirit world and have their own link with the spirit world, because that's where we've come from to where we go. So as the baby takes its first breath and the spirit enters the body, the children recognize where they've come from. And they look up at the ceiling, they see the faces, and sometimes you'll see the children laughing in the prams. I've gone through Hounds Hill shopping in Blackpool, and there'll be toddlers in a pram, and they look at me and they follow me like that. Watch it. Watch out when anybody who's spiritually connected.
Yeah, I see that, yeah.
To watch the kids where they turn and stare at you. And they don't know why they're staring, but they just, and they're nearly climbing out the pram.
What I noticed a lot of is when we had a little shop on the local market here is and you were getting the children, whenever they would come on, they'd go straight for the crystals.
Yeah.
And the mum and the dad would be there going, well, I don't know what it is. And they'd go straight to them, and like they knew what they were looking for.
It's a spirit light. It's the spirit light. It's a spirit energy.
Yeah.
It's they're seeing the spirit light. They understand what it means. And
so natural.
It's natural. It's natural.
Yeah.
I have a sister-in-law called Bev, and her little girl, Georgia, was 2.5 at the time. She's 28 now. And Beverly were moving home. And she'd got her old wedding album on the coffee table. And she turned the pages, and Bev came in, and Georgia was there turning the pages. And Bev went over and she said, who's that? And she went, Gang Gang. And Bev nearly fainted. She phoned me on the phone 15 minutes later. And she said, who's that? Nan Nan. He'd already been in the world of spirit before Georgia was born. And Bev turned around, obviously knowing me, turned around and said, well, where are they? And she went, there.
Wow.
There. If you asked, if the people asked the children, what are they seeing? I think they'd be quite shocked.
So what kind of advisement would you give them to parents that have got children and they struggle, the mum and the dad, they've got that fear? What kind of advisement would you give parents who's got children that are obviously very spiritually open?
Well, you can't stop it, but you don't want to progress it either, because then you're pushing them into something and maybe their mind isn't ready for that. And when children wake up at 2:00 in the morning on the dot and they're crying, and other children, spirit children, have been seen on camera, well, this has been going on for years and years. And I always used to say to everybody, take a little glass of water, put it on the top somewhere where the child can't come to any harm. And the water is like a cleanser.
Yeah.
And it's the children aren't in harm, and the ones in the spirit aren't at harm, but they're just looking after and playing with the children on the earth. That's what they're doing. Yeah. They're just, yeah. 100%. So at the end of the day, all you can do is like, yes, talk. I have to explain something here as well, because this is a big question that's going on at the moment. My granddad has come back in the little boy.
Yeah, what's your thoughts on that?
They haven't. They can't. Because you have to be in spirit 70 odd years collecting your own family over the other side.
That's my thoughts.
But what's happened is the children, the spirit that's due to come down on the earth, the baby, has already met all this family that have gone before him. They pick up their traits, their personalities, their looks, and then they come to the earth.
They think it's the granddad or the mother
that's why the earth, and it's not. No,
that's a really good explanation, actually, because that gets mentioned a lot. And
yes,
I remember years ago in the circle we sat in, and we asked that question, and they said to us, "Well, if you were to go to spirit now, who would you expect to see?"
Correct.
And I was like, "Yeah, I'd expect to see my granddad." Well, of course, it's going to be there, isn't it? It's not going to be reincarnated.
No,
but also that explanation what you've given them makes a lot of sense. It really does.
Well, also as well, we can't be reincarnated back into the same family. Yeah. You have to have a new life. So when you've chosen your life, you book a life, you go back. If you want to come back down to the earth again, you're going to have different lessons.
Yes.
It's a different family. It's a different way of life.
Yeah, it's like completing a chapter in a way.
Correct.
You can't go back into the same, the same chapter.
That's right.
That's been done.
That's right.
You've had a shot at it.
That's right. Yeah. I've noticed as well, I don't know if you have when you're doing your demonstrations, but a lot of questions are coming through from people now.
Yeah.
And I give that at the end of the night. Has anybody got a question about the spirit world? Because they may never go into a spiritualist church or a centre. And if you get them in there, and they've got a chance of asking and putting their mind at rest. That's how I feel I'm going at the moment.
Do you think that's part of the, I don't want to say evolution, things are always changing in the world.
Yeah.
But a lot's changing in the sense of at one time, this work would be very hidden.
Yes.
People would do it closed away in their house, in the kitchen.
That's right.
Be the spiritualist church that's tucked away and people point at when they pass. But now we're very much coming out of that. Everybody knows somebody.
Yes.
You might have had a reading.
That's
or
right.
They've been, and public demonstrations are going on outside of these places.
They are. They are.
And that seems to be a great time we're living in
Yeah,
as well. It seems to be an evolution in a way.
If you remember, I'm going back 20 years. When I first did, a big venue in Cleveland, that's like 15 years ago now. I was one of the first mediums to do it. But then I asked Spirit, and they said, please go and start it, because then people will not go into a church that's scared. We need to take out the frightened, the frightened. And that's when I started working there.
I think as a medium, I think we should always try to be open-hearted and open-minded and work with Spirit rather than systems and policies that are very dogmatic.
Yeah.
We do have places on the earth, and for me that restricts the flow of working with Spirit, I feel.
Also, as well, a lot of mediums will give their comments that you should be doing this and you shouldn't be doing that, and it's wrong. I'm having nobody telling me which way to go spiritually. Not the ages.
We wouldn't listen to it anyway. So
correct. And I did. I did, Stephen. I used to think, oh, what are they going to think? And then I got told I was big-headed and da-da-da. And I've had to rise above all that. And you do. And I'm glad, because when I go back to the world of Spirit, they're going to come to me and go, very sorry, Jeanette, you was right.
Yeah.
And I don't get me wrong, I'm not right in everything, but I do my best. Yeah. And I think, and I've done it for Jeanette as well.
We have to question things, don't you? I think we're here to question. We're not here to follow. We're here to know, to feel, to experience, to question things. And that's what we're being very passionate at the work here at the Perfect Man.
I know you are.
Always be open-minded, tear things apart, research, look at things.
That's
don't just put things in the box.
As well, I think, be you.
That's
Spirit haven't chosen you, so you can start being somebody else. Another persona that'll keep people happy. They've chosen you for your full self.
Correct.
Every facet of you.
That's right. I remember years ago in the spiritualist churches that some people used to copy a certain medium. And I don't mean a certain medium. I mean, they'd copy the way they worked. That's it. That's the word I'm looking for. And the format of it. And I said, you can't. We can only... I know that a friend of mine, Barry, talks about you can't say you're teaching anybody. You do teach them, but then it's up to the spirit world and them to take them to which way they want and their personality come out in a message. Because nobody can copy you, nobody can copy me. We have a different way of doing it. And that's how it's meant to be.
One of my first lessons, I have to say, because Stephen was doing public demonstrations, readings long before. I was quite happy in the circle at the time. And asking my questions. And
I remember that.
So happy. And I sat there one night and I was getting things, and I thought, well, and it wasn't in a way of wanting something that somebody else has got. But I thought, well, if I was going to do it, I would like to do it that way.
Correct.
Because I felt like he was doing it in an authentic way.
Yeah.
But very quickly within weeks said, but it's not your way. You are you. Yes. You're not Stephen. And
that's right.
That was one of my first big lessons in this work.
Yeah.
We're going to work with you. That's tailored to you.
Yeah.
So be you.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think that's a fundamental for anybody who's be you.
Your guides have got to have the same diamond light that you've got. You've got to have the same facets.
Yeah.
So if a guide came and worked with you, he's got to be like you.
Yeah.
They've got to all be similar, because otherwise it wouldn't work. And I remember, I'm going back to Colin again, they fetched him a new monk. And this monk come. Well, if anybody knew Colin, he was full of fun and he was always having everybody on, and he loved the personality. He got in trouble with it many a time, but he had this personality. And when this monk arrived, he felt depressed and he couldn't pick up. And it was like a week of going on like this. I said, are you okay? He said, no. He said, I've had to send the monk back. He said, because he's too miserable for me and he's and he said, he's fetching me down. Now that monk went back. Now at the time I'm thinking, oh, the poor man. The poor, not Colin, the monk. Yeah. So I'm thinking, the poor man. And then, the monk came back 3 months later and said, thank you very much. I found another channel. I've been to the halls of learning. I laughed more.
Wow.
He laughed more and he went to another channel.
And I think that's an important, in what you told us there, in not that we're here to work with spirit, not worship.
That's right.
Because it'd be so easy to fall into, well, that's what I'm meant to do.
Yeah.
Whoever's coming forward, that's it.
Right.
It's an absolute. were saying, no, something doesn't feel right here.
Yeah.
There's something else playing
That's
out.
right.
And being truthful.
That's right. Yeah.
So just backtracking a little bit.
Yeah.
Sort of when you're on your journey and what you were experiencing when you said you were in the supermarket or
Yeah.
what you're picking up. We all seem to have a moment when we meet somebody on our path or
Yes.
we go somewhere and
Yeah.
it's the da-da moment.
Yeah.
This is what I should be doing. This is where I'm at. Is there anybody that you sort of met who a teacher or a particular place that you connected with that was was that moment for you?
When I went into Albert Road Spiritualist Church,
Yeah.
and it was a lady called Val, I don't know if you remember Val, that used to come around with me at the time, going in the Spiritualist
She
Church.
was a medium, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was a healer.
Yeah,
She was a healer. And she said to me, Jeanette, there's a Spiritualist Church in Albert Road. And she said, it's on a Thursday night. I didn't even know they existed. And she says, because you need help for switching it on and switching it off. Because there was one night, and I'd left my husband and I'd gone into my own apartment, and the girls came round for a drink, and I'd got my playing cards out because my playing cards were my tool that I was using. My normal playing cards, no writing on them, nothing like that. And I'd had this drink of wine, unknowing at the time there was no spirit with spirit. And I'm giving all these girls a reading. And then a month later, a lady came back and she said, Jeanette, it's all come through. Well, I panicked. I thought, hold on here a minute. This is like you're delving in somebody's life here. And I didn't want the responsibility of having that.
Yeah.
And I've gone off the question. Go on.
No, it's just finding the moment that you sort of found.
So I'm with you.
So
I'm with you.
Yeah,
it is.
I'm glad you hit on responsibility as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because that drops in us all, doesn't it?
It does.
This is a big responsibility.
It is. It was a massive responsibility. So anyway, Val says to me, right, we'll go to Albert Road. So I said, right. So I went in on the Thursday. Well, as I walked in the door, and then the Albert Road Church was heaving in downstairs on a Thursday night there.
Yeah,
You couldn't get enough. You could,
well.
Massive. And I didn't realise it was packed with mediums, packed. And I went in, and as I got in the door, I went hot. I went, whoa. I got palpitations. I was like I was getting all worked up. My stomach was churning. I felt poorly, actually. I thought, wow. And then this gentleman came up and he says, oh, can I help you, ladies? I said, yes, I've just come to see the church. He said, I've been waiting for you to come in, madam. Well, my face. I was like, well, what does he know about me? And he says, I've been told by Spirit you'd need help. I thought, oh, my God. You can imagine, can't you?
Yeah.
So anyway, we sat down and he took me up church, up the top. He said, let me show you this. I fell in love with Albert Road Church. I did. And in my head, you're going to get married here. So I went to Val. I'm going to get married here. And she went, you're not even out with anybody. I said, I know. So I'm going to get married here. And she went, right. Well, this obviously then was like years later. But that church, the mediums helped me shut down, open up. I could never go on a psychic link. I didn't know what they meant. I couldn't start a message off with a psychic. It had to be a spiritual link. And then there was I forget her name now, and the lady that was chairing, Mark Wilson, all them, they were there. And I got help from Margaret Eccles, Helen Taylor. Well, excuse me, Margaret was the first one that took me down to Clitheroe to do a little church service with her. And she didn't tell me what she was doing. That was my first. Yeah. Seeing spirit was phenomenal. It was brilliant. So Albert Road, they sorted me out and balanced me. Then I went on and to help in the church and everything. So I was seeing spirit walk through everything. And I remember one afternoon, they said to me, oh, Jeanette, the medium's not turned up. We think you'll be able to do it. I said, oh, I've been next. And there was this, I talk about this story a lot. And there was this little man, he was 80 odd, and smaller than you, I'm not saying anything, Chris, but smaller than yourself, slimmer. And I said to him, I remember standing there and I said, I've got a larger lady by my side. So in your material life, thinking, well, if this is his wife, this is a big lady.
Yeah.
I did. And he says, oh, I don't know who that is. I said, well, she's got a black and white dress on. So she's got a hat on. And I said, she's got a beautiful necklace on. He says, hey, love, I don't know who it is. Well, I'm panicking. And all of a sudden, Spirit gave me Henrietta. What? Yeah. Henrietta. I said, who's Henrietta? Hey, love, you've not got me missus, you've got me pet cow. And she were black and white. She were getting bigger. She got the hat on, the straw hat. She got the bell as a necklace. But I know the difference now between the animal kingdom and the human odes.
Wow, amazing stuff.
Yeah, I know the difference. I knew the difference then straight away. And I've been on platform, and there was somebody who lived in South Africa, and I said, I've got this big elephant. And I had to move back. I moved back for the elephant to walk in front of me. And he said, oh yeah, he said, it lived next door. So when you see these things, you've got to give everything that you see, haven't you?
Yeah, you can't hold back.
You can't hold back whatever you see.
I remember I saw this lion, and I said to this lady, straight away I thought, that must be symbolic. So I thought, blah, 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 blah. And she said, well, can I just tell you, my next door neighbour had this lion wherever she was. And I thought, well, always just give it. It's not for you to figure out.
Correct. Well, that's what I tried to do. You see, I tried to figure out this little man with the big lady.
It's where the mind comes in.
The mind comes in as if to say, So
it'll be good. It'll be good, Jeanette, as we sort of delving deeper into the podcast a bit about how you met Colin and letting people know a little bit about Colin and the work that you got into, the trance, the circle, and then coming to sort of the end of his life on the earth. Yeah. And where your life transformed from them. Because I know we had a bit of a chat before, and I think about grief and how you've overcome that, about using the word loss and things like that. So what's your thoughts on?
Well, when I met Colin, it was at Albert Road Church. And I remember there was a lady, I can't think of her name now, but she had tweed skirt on and brogues. And I used to call her, I had a nickname for Hinge and Bracket. She'll know now. I used to call her Hinge, right, because she had the glasses and everything. And she got up on this open circle and she said, Jeanette, she said, Spirit are going to get you a man, and it's going to be in this church. Well, I looked at Dennis, who was 90, playing the piano. We got Len, who was hardly breathing but wanted every lady that was going around. We got all these. Graham, my friend, who liked the male side. So we had, and I'm looking at everybody in this church thinking, oh my God, yes. And then a couple of years later, in walked Colin. He wasn't looking for anybody. I wasn't looking for anybody. And he just separated. And we actually went out for a coffee to actually help each other, because he just literally lost his nephew. He was 2.5, and he was grieving big style because he'd got leukemia, and he never had any pain, little Michael, when he passed. But Colin couldn't get over that he'd given healing on every list where he went for Michael, and they couldn't do anything. But then it came to reality that Michael never had any pain out of all the children that were in the ward. Yeah. So that taught Colin a massive thing about the healing list and how important it was. Then we started going out together, and then we would be at the church together. And then obviously as the relationship progressed, we ended up going to churches together, driving and doing all the demonstrations. The trance came 12 months after we were together, and his trance was just phenomenal. It just was.
He did the knowledge. Demonstrations for us here.
He did
as well.
He did.
That's some amazing nights.
Amazing, and he's travelled all over the country, and Spain, Alicante, and so the trance was teaching other people. And when we went to London a lot, then the trance was teaching them all about the spirit world and things that people didn't know on a spiritual level that they needed. And then obviously we knew that Colin was poorly for the past 10 years, very adamant about which way he should go and everything. And we talked about the future. And I just said to him, I said, I know you're going to be free. And he said, there's 13 years in me and Colin in our age. And he said, well, I don't want you on your own, but they'll never beat the best. And he went like that with a little wink in his eye. Yeah, that's it. And so, anyway, when he was poorly then, and we talked about his transition, and he kept seeing things. And this one's a little bit weird, but I'm going to tell you what, because Mohammed used to come in when he was sleeping, and then Wolf, then all the others used to come in. And what they were doing, unknown to me, was saying goodbye to me and saying thank you for the work that we'd done together, that life was meant to be. So Mohammed came through once, and Colin's mind was starting to go then. So Mohammed was like battling with the mind, because Mohammed was a mental helper with the mind, if that makes sense, people who have problems. And he says to me, he said, he's not got long to go. And he said, we're just looking out of how to take him home. And he said, look into the sky. Well, the bed was facing, so the sky was there. And I said, I'm sorry, Mohammed, I don't know what you mean. And he just said, close your eyes. Close my eyes. And I opened my eyes and I went, oh, wow. And there was a train on a track. There was a car on the road. There was a motorbike going down the road. There was an aeroplane. Every form of transport to get you home to the spirit world was already in the sky. Everything. And they were all busy. Spirit were all busy. Collecting, fetching down. It was untrue. And I thought, and they gave me that gift to show me how the spirit world are here, but they're working with us now. And I said, thank you very much. And then Colin passed over. And I went upstairs for my shower. My sister was there with me, and Anne. And I went upstairs for a shower. So I got in the shower. I heard Colin go, hiya, Jan. Beautiful here. Knew it was. Love you loads, going for my party. Woof, gone. In that 5 minutes of me going upstairs to get showered and get my thoughts together, I never looked back. I never looked back. He was so happy. He was free. He wasn't in any pain. His body was in a terrible state when he left this earth. And that's when I feel sorry for people getting a message when we have to prove how they've passed on some occasions, because the spirit world, they have to relive it. When they come down here to give a message, they have to relive how they passed. And that's why sometimes a spirit will find it hard to come forward, because once they've done that and they get stronger, they'll come through again and again. So then Colin obviously went to the spirit world, and then my grieving was done in private. I never cried, because I see so much spirit and my belief in the spirit world. It was my time now to cope in another life. I'll always love him. Always remember the days we have together and the memories we've had, because I've been a very lucky lady. And all the lessons we've had were all for the spirit world. Everything. When we lost our businesses, when we lost our home, when we've lost things, we still stayed together. And it was all lessons for the spirit world. And they told us that everything you've been through is so then I can then help other people that have been through similar things. So everything I've gone through, I now help and I understand it.
Quite often the case, in it, that people in any form of spiritual work, if you ask them, they have not had easy lives, because almost experiences that have been needed. So we have the empathy and understanding. So when we're talking about these things with others, we know, because we felt it, we've been through it ourselves.
Correct.
And come through.
Correct.
Yeah.
And Wolf did say, he said, we gave you a tough book, even though you've chose it yourself. He said, you have had a tough book, but he said it's going to be right in the end. And then obviously Colin passed in the September, and I was in the garden in the May. And he'd planted roses. He loved his garden. And I said, oh, your roses are coming up. And he went, hiya, Jan, it's me. I said, hello, this is in the garden. I said, hello, love. And he said, I'm going to get you a partner. I'm going to get you a man. I said, I'm not ready, love. I said, he said, no, it's not yet. It's around our anniversary. And he said, but go forward, Jeanette, and don't take any notice what anybody says. And he said, because I don't want you on your own. I said, right. So he said, rise above it and you're going to be surprised. I said, right, okay. I know I mentioned it to my friends and they'd all seen it anyway because they were giving me readings to keep me going.
Yeah.
You know, are you with me? It's like we only need a reading when we need it, when we're needing help. And I remember you guys, you helped me a lot. And I don't forget that when I went to the market and I was needing somebody to talk to. And that's what it's all about. It's not in your pocket all the time. It's when you need it.
Yeah.
You don't have to see somebody for 5 years, but you know where to go when you need it.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing. So I had my friends and they looked after me. And I'd had friends who'd grieved as well, and I was looking after them. And then in the August, my friend who sat here listening to all this today, there's something going on in St. Anne's, like a band and that. You're coming down. I said, aye, go on then, I will. August bank holiday. And I weren't bothered really. And all of a sudden I bumped into somebody. And she said, how are you doing, Jeanette? I said, I'm all right. I said, how's Adrian? She said, oh, he's a pain in the neck. Just take him for a coffee. And I'd known him 25 years ago, knew his wife. And he'd lost his wife. And I ended up helping him. And he's ended up helping me. Amazing.
Yeah.
And that was 12 months for Colin's anniversary date.
Wow, Spirit never disappoint. They never. But then I could let him move on. He told me he had a place in the halls of learning where everything he'd been taught. People who'd go to the spirit world who'd not known about it were allowed to go into Colin's Hall of Learning room, and he taught them. So he's still teaching. Wow.
And then he said, right, you won't be seeing me for a little while, I'm going off. And he did.
And I'm sure those experiences that you both had, when they're taken back as well, them experiences of the earth, they're invaluable, aren't they?
They're invaluable.
We got that mentioned, I mean, many, many years ago. One of our main teachers that we brought into this work was Anita, who was a trance medium.
Yeah.
And we were told when she passed back to the spirit world, the experiences she had, the human experience was so valuable to spirit, particularly in trance mediumship as well.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to mention there is, I found it an unusual experience in a way when she passed, not only for the person that you sort of grieve in, even though you know they'll be all right, is actually the spirit who used to come through and communicate. In a way, you sort of grieve for them, and they're not gone, but they're not going to come through. And the people the spirits that came through her never came through anybody else again.
Right.
And sort of it's a chapter that has come to a close, isn't it, in a way?
Yes.
Well, I don't know what your thoughts are.
It's funny you should mention that, because I said to Wolf and Mohammed, and I said, you're going to be going off. And I said, and I'm going to miss you a lot.
Yeah.
Because you're not talking once a fortnight. Sometimes we were demonstrating 3 and 4 times a week. And obviously I'm sat beside them, but that was like my family.
You're living it every day.
You're living it. Well, I had a shock because a few months ago, Wolf starts coming through me.
Wow.
He started coming through me and he'd been talking in demonstrations.
Incredible.
And it's untrue. This man coming through with a female voice.
Yeah.
His mannerisms, his power, his everything. Mohammed's still here, but he hasn't come through, but I know he's here, which is Colin's healing guide. I haven't seen Umbala, which is his doorkeeper. I have seen the prayer guide, which was Reuben. I know he's still somewhere around as well. So yes, some of them. But when you think about them coming through in trance for 25 years.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a long time. So, yes, some of them are here and some of them aren't.
Yeah, because you can feel it. Sometimes we felt it. We've been sat in a group and gone, so-and-so's about.
Correct.
They popped in and said hello.
Hello, yeah.
But I found that a very interesting experience, human experience.
It is a human.
Because it was for one person, you're like,
yeah,
a bit selfish. I miss talking to that person coming through, and I know they're here.
That's right.
But it's very different, isn't it? When you're in
it's the humanoid side of us that wants the human voice.
Yeah.
So you've got that personality, and all of a sudden, like 5 or 6 or 7 of them have all gone.
Suddenly makes it, because I can remember the first time I experienced trance, and I thought it made it very real.
Yeah.
That's the only way I could put. I was like, hang on to your seats. This is really happening here.
It is happening. That's
this
right.
Isn't some.
That's right. That's right.
You know what's just come to my mind? I don't know why. I remember the first time I met you, Jeanette, this was even when I was in the very early days in the circle now, when I went to Fleetwood Church with my friend Faye, she's gone now, and you gave me a message.
Oh, right.
And you talked about somebody called Chris, which was Chris. Said you're going to be friends for life, you're spiritual brothers. And we've never been free, even though we wanted to throttle each other sometimes. We end up, what we've created is destiny, soul purpose. Do you think you and Colin was meant to come back and have that?
Yes.
The teachings, the channeling.
Everything.
That was a big part of your soul contract.
It was a big part. I'm not being, I'm not talking away and being big-headed, but Spirit told us it was a massive phase for them regarding the spirit world. And also a couple being married doing this spirit work together.
Quite rare as well.
It's very rare.
Unique,
but now you're getting other couples now working together, because they said there was never any jealousy with us. There was never anything. It was, because Colin was you've got to remember the old-fashioned mediums, and they were very serious, just very serious. So when we went into the spiritualist church, it's like they either put up with Colin, or, and they called him the clown, and they said he's never going to be a medium. Yeah. So what happened was, when I started taking him on platform, it's not right, this, but he dealt with he had, the gift with the world of spirit that dealt with the people in the congregation that needed that lift.
Yes.
And I always said that you work with some different people to what Chris will, and the spirit will put the service right, and that the chair people used to come off and go, it has been a bit near the knuckle tonight. Yeah. And I said, so I used to think, oh, spirit, what you're doing, what you're doing. Yeah.
But they know those spirit, don't they? They know what's coming through and what's needed.
Well, it reminds me of long before we sat in the circle that we joined, and they used to say when they started, they were very respectful.
Yeah.
And there was something one night, and it made them laugh so much, and none of them could stop laughing.
Yeah.
And they said, we felt awful. We're cackling, and are we turning this into a silly?
Yeah.
And the next week, what was brought to them was the vibrations needed lifting.
Correct.
And it's like shattering something that was quite heavy.
Yeah.
So laughter is so important. I know a recent demonstration you did for us at the local bowling club with Jenny.
Yeah.
And it was there was a lot of laughter that night. And she made a point. She said, we're living in such heavy times. The laughter is needed more than ever. And I thought, she's spot on.
She is spot on.
We need to break that.
That's
where
right.
there is concrete, it needs breaking up a bit.
Yeah, that's right.
I can certainly understand some places where it wouldn't always go down
that's
well,
right. Well, my laughter, they fetched in somebody for me, and the laughter's now there. I went to Barnsley in a little theatre a couple of months ago, and the place, but I never did it. The spirit world did it. I just went to work and didn't even realise that it was making them laugh and what have you. And then I gave them the question time at the end of the night. They had the clairvoyance, the proof, the laughter, and then the question time.
Yeah. And
I was made up. And I said, we've made it. 67, that's the way I want to go. Wow. That's the way I want to go. So do you know, before we were talking about guides, now, because I've got Colin here, I know I have. And he had a guide come in called Yakatu, a little Inca Indian. Oh, he were cheeky. And I couldn't cope. And he'd come in and he'd have some teeth missing, through the trance state, and he'd be spitting in this, when he's talking, because, and then he'd take the mickey everybody. And I thought, I can't cope with this guide. And then they'd say, Colin would say, Yakatu's here. And I think, oh no. But then I knew the spirit world knew how I felt. Anyway, Yakatu had to back off. There was something where Colin said he weren't quite happy. And then I remember Yakatu coming to me and he said, yes, I've had to. I said, I do apologise. It's all right. When you come home to the world of spirit, you can bow at my feet. And I've had that in my head. But the first thing I've got to do when I get up there is to apologise to Yakatu. But it's like having the two of us working together and getting that balance. So I would get up and I'd be the serious one at the time. But now I'm not. It's like this is
Your work's changed. And
My
your
work,
energy's changed.
you changed because I'm a different person to was when I was 30 or 20 or 10.
100%. You got
Yeah.
that wonderful time with Colin, really, where you did a lot of big events, workshops.
We did.
And so many people benefited from that knowledge as well.
Yeah.
And really, since I'd say 2020, any angle anybody wants to look at it, a lot's changed.
Loads.
It's like a fast forward. Even the last 5 years feels like we've done 10 years worth of life in the last 5 years.
I understand
it's
that.
gone so fast, hasn't it?
I understand that, yeah.
So what would be your perception of it? And also, how have things changed for you since Colin's gone back home to spirit? You know, how are things adjusting for you?
He was such a solid man. He did what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
He was adamant he wanted to do all this work, and he never regretted a day. And he just said to me, please get on with your life. That was his most important thing, that I wasn't on my own and I was being looked after. Yeah. And he also said at the time, don't rush and sell the house. And I said, no, because I was going to stay there. But now, 4 years later, coming up, it's time for me to move on now. I feel happy we're moving on. He's given me the stability to do what I want to do. Spiritually, he made me do what I wanted to do, and he pushed me.
Yeah. He
pushed me to who I am. And when he went over, I did say to him, I want to say thank you so much for everything he did. And I never let him down. And I did. I loved him so much. I loved him so much, and that'll never die. Yeah. As I tell everybody, life's fully existent, and love is forever. You know, so it's like, even though I was married at such a young age, that time was for Jeanette to grow. The time with Colin is now the spiritual path. Yeah. And the time now is a totally different personality that I've met. And I know that Colin now can do what he's doing in the spirit world. Look after me now and again. Are you with me?
Yeah.
And being looked after. He knows I'm being looked after.
So what kind of sort of advisement would you give people listening to podcasts that have had a loved one, a child, a partner who have gone to spirit, and they feel that they can't overcome that grief? What kind of sort of advisement would you give them?
You can never get over grief. It doesn't matter how long or how little time when somebody passes. Children, it's devastating. One of our best friends, she had a stillborn little boy bear. We lost Michael with the leukemia at 2.5, and we lost our godson, and he was 16 weeks old with his heart. This is what I'm saying about experiences. You know, all these experiences with children is helping the parents to not forget, but try and cope with it.
Yeah.
If you can cope with it and live your life and carry on laughing and loving, you're halfway there. You know, it's like my friend that sat behind us now. She lost 2 sons within 4 days, you know, in the COVID. And, you know, to where she is today, the growth that's happened because of her spiritual teachings, she's learning, because them boys then can come and communicate. The children can communicate. So on the earthly type, you cannot please family and friends of how you're going to deal with everything.
Yeah.
Now, I had Colin's niece phone me up last week, and she tragically lost her daughter by taking her own life. And she said, they're all telling me to get on with it now. I said, you will never get on with it, Debbie. You have to learn to live with it, but become stronger to cope. And she said, that's what I wanted to hear. I said, and if you are grieving, just go to somebody you can trust, or go on your own. Talk to her, talk to Natalie. She's still there. You know, and she doesn't go to a spiritualist church, but she talks to me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And there's no time. But I felt as if it was right the first 12 months where Jeanette had to get Jeanette back. I had Colin's permission to move forward. I knew that Adrian had come through Colin.
Yeah.
Colin's checked everything out and said, I want Jeanette. You know, she's done it. He said, you've worked that hard for spirit. I want you to enjoy your life.
Yeah.
So now the material side of life, as in holidays and going out more and, you know, not slowing down. I don't do as many private readings now. I like my shows, and I don't want to be tied at home now.
Yeah.
with readings all the time. I want to enjoy my life more.
I think that's something very important to touch on, because
definitely.
so many times you hear it so often, people starting this mediumship path.
Yeah.
It's my passion, it's what I'm meant to be doing. Next minute I'm doing readings, next minute you're being asked to go here, there and everywhere.
Yeah.
Before you know it, you look in your diary, you're out every night.
Correct.
Doing all this, this. Well, I can't let anybody down, can I? And 6 months, 12 months, burnout comes.
Yeah.
So what would sort of be your advice to people starting at that moment, if they're listening now and they're currently starting out and they want to be here, there and everywhere, and they're sort of passionate in balancing things? Balancing.
First of all, my advice is you're not going to be the best, and you're not going to be the one that's going to be in the TV on the stage.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. And, take it that if you want to do readings, you pick a certain times. You want to do your demonstrations. Does that make sense? Because Spirit actually stopped a gentleman, I can't think of his name, many years ago, and he worked with Gordon Higginson many years ago. Tom somebody, but I am going about the 70s or the 80s. And this gentleman was doing readings by the day and then doing theatre at night for 1,000 people.
So long.
Yeah. And one night he got on a stage and Spirit didn't turn up. And everybody had to have the money, and that man never worked again because Spirit said the finance had taken over.
Wow. Yeah.
Now, what happens today in the modern world is that a medium is allowed to go so far, but they're not stopping them. They're actually pulling them back on their evidential of their mediumship. It's not the same as it was 12 months ago. So if somebody's struggling with their mediumship, you need to look at your personal responsibility and go, why am I upsetting Spirit?
Why are they stepping back?
Why are they stepping back? Because if you do it for the finance, that's the first thing that comes in my head.
Yeah.
Yes, you need to be paid for your tea, coffee, your gas, central heating and your time. That's fine. Nothing can be free. And also as well, if you did it for free, you'd have them queued up till 2:00 in the morning down your street. And it also is disrespectful to your group, because my Mr. Chow, he thinks he's worth a fortune. So he thinks, today, and I don't want to upset him. Yeah. So he's here and he's the one that obviously talks to me and gives me all the info. So then it's like, well, you've got to tell Spirit what you would like to happen. What you feel comfortable with. And if you want a mixture, have a mixture, but make sure you give your family time or get your balance.
That's very important, isn't it, to get that balance? And we'll talk about that before the podcast, won't we?
Yes.
About what does Jeanette want, what does Stephen want, and I think that's so important. We forget that as mediums because we feel that we're doing this for Spirit, but we are Spirit. We also have, it's that partnership, it's that respect. And,
that's right.
And I think we need to have that balance in our lives as well, don't we?
Yeah, I'm happy with my shows now, because when I do them, Jeanette comes alive. When I'm working with Spirit, the whole thing comes alive. I actually want more of a home life now.
Yeah.
That's been important. That's why, that's where I am, I am.
That's part of you here to experience, and we are here to enjoy our time as well.
I want my own garden now. I don't want to be having 4 or 5 readings in an afternoon. I need space now.
Yeah. I think you made a very good point early on in terms of development when you were talking about with yourself, where you said, just being you.
Yes.
And don't worry too much. Try not to about what people think.
That's right.
That's so important.
That's right.
And I've met people who've been, they're going, they're nervous wrecks because of that, worried about what people think.
They are.
Yeah.
And then they're worried about that they have to do certain things in a message. They have to hit certain points. And if they don't, they're not doing something right.
That's right.
All that needs to be let go.
That's right.
And I remember saying to somebody not long ago, saying, you can take a breath.
Yeah.
You can actually stop and take a breath and go.
That's right.
And back in.
That's right. Yeah.
Don't hold yourself to obligation. Just be you.
That's right.
Yeah. Spirit don't want you being miserable either.
Do the egg. No, they want you enjoing life.
That's for the living as well.
It is. I know that, I'm getting a bit of an old bird here, but so
I
haven't.
Getting a few grey hairs.
I haven't got grey hairs. Thank you very much. Excuse me. Yeah, Mrs. Poshpaw's here. We don't have any. Yeah, so, as well, I'm going to be honest, because you never see me going on Facebook judging or talking about anybody, ever, about their mediumship. If I talk about mediumship, it's not the person, it's what they're giving as evidence.
Yeah.
And recently, I've been having a little trekkie. So I've been going to see some mediums when I go in the churches. They see me and they go, "Oh God, are you going to watch us work?" And I set off laughing because I said, "I'm not here judging you. I'm interested of where you're up to." And then, and I have got the experience. So then if they want help, if they can come up to me at the end and go, "What do you think, Jeanette?" And they do. And I'll say, "Well, stand up and portray it more. Don't have your head down. Be proud of what you're giving, no matter how small or how big, be proud of it." So that's happening as well at the moment. So I've been to and I said, as soon as the faces drop,
Well, there is that thing in there when you walk in places, and I think as well, it's coming for the people. If somebody turns up to a service of yours who's a quite renowned medium or well known, they're not there to pull you to pieces. No. Quite old they shouldn't be. They're there to encourage you.
Correct.
And they might even be coming because they've got a night off and they go, "Do you know what? I would have just sat and watched somebody else
How many times did I come here for a bit of peace?
Yeah, that's what you used to say. I don't want to be bothered. I just want to come
just sit in a corner and I just want to have my little prayer and my little meditation, watch a medium work, and it was lovely. I loved it. So everyone needs that space.
Yeah, I like doing that once in a while. If I've got a night off, and just go to wherever for the night, and I sit at the back and just think, this is just nice. Just watch somebody else work.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I remember we were talking about life, and I was in the queue at the Manchester airport to go on a flight, and somebody recognised me, and he was in the other lane on a different flight. "Hey, love," his wife. "That spook's in that corner over there." And everyone's looking at me. He said, she's here, like this. Well,
I bet they're thinking, "Oh, if she's on the plane, it's all safe then."
Yeah, we're all right.
They do. Elaine does that, my friend. When we're going to fly, Jeanette's with us, we're going to get home all right. You know what I mean?
That's what I would think.
Yeah, they do, because she's got work to do. She's going to be all right, Oh, dearie me. So yeah, it's it's the fun of it all, isn't it? As well, and in my life, I've met so many lovely people. I really have, and they care for you. It's like last night, I got a little birthday card last night from somebody I hadn't got a clue who she was, but she comes to the shows and I didn't even know her name, bless her. And she said, "Jeanette, it's your birthday this week." She says, "Here's a little card." Do you know what I mean? And it's
the little things.
The little things. And I remember years ago, there was a lady working in a building society and she came to me for a private reading. And I was around the 20th of November with this reading. I'm going back a long, long time. And in this reading, a spirit showed me the two children she'd got, and she'd got a tin of beans and a tin of peas in the cupboard. And I says to her, you're struggling at this moment. And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "I don't know what it is." I said, "I'm by the 18th of December. I said, I see finances, I see toys for the children. I see everything that you need. Jeanette, I haven't got a clue where it's coming from." And I said, "Well, I promise you, I trust Spirit." And I went away and I sent me prayers. And I said, "Spirit, I'm so worried about this lady." And where I worked at that time, she came in around the 20th of December with a poinsettia. She put it on the table and I went, "Who gets a tax rebate on the 18th of December?" No, but that poinsettia every year, and I've still got one alive this year now.
Wow.
Every year I think of her. Never been in touch with her since. I don't know where she is, but that rings a bell without a doubt.
How important what people forget as well, particularly in private readings and demonstrations, as a medium, is you are channeling those stories and those messages. The spirit are there, but also gives you great pride in a way, or that lovely feeling as well. Do you get that as well?
Yeah.
You think, wow, I'm so privileged, so honoured
That's
they're
right.
able to pass on those messages.
And it's nice to hear sometimes what happens after, and sometimes I'm sure you've experienced that many times.
It's
we
lovely.
might see somebody a year later or whatever, and they say, remember that reading you gave me? Well, I didn't know what to make of it at the time, but this and this happened, and I'm living this life, and it's nice to hear the other side of it. And and sometimes I believe it's brought to you as a reminder. It's important what you do.
Yeah,
look
that's right.
Just
it is important
as a bit of a reminder.
It is.
The little things you think, that was only that.
Yeah, that's right.
But it was massive to that person.
Well, when I worked in the Building Society agency with the estate agency years ago, clients used to come to the counter and they'd go, is my mum with you, love? And I've got, say, £500 cash in the old days with your sponge. And I'm going, yes, love, she's great. And I'm counting my money. And then I'd go into people's houses, get them to get it on the market. Oh, you're Jeanette, that medium. Am I going to sell? I said, this is in the hallway. And I go, well, I don't know. And my mum and dad with you, am I going to sell? I said, well, let's get it valued first. Let's get it sorted, then we'll have a look if you're going to sell. But I used to go across the board on the wall and I go to the girls, that needs to reduce. It's not going to sell. We're going to get a buyer for that. So the two worlds can come together without it being financial. Does that make sense? Yeah. Your gift can help other people as well. Going to the hospice and holding someone's hand. Going in hospital and you're visiting somebody, but you send a prayer out for the people on the ward. And sometimes I used to go and see Colin, and then while he's being seen to, I used to go and say hello to everybody else that was on their own. But that's the time when you have to re-shut your spiritual door, because you're giving healing, you've opened all your doors.
Yes.
So when you do that in the morning and you go off healing, you've got to remember then to come out and shut yourself down again.
Yeah, particularly in places like hospitals.
So we experienced that with a friend of ours who she got moved to different sections in the hospital. And we went to see her one time and we weren't aware of what department it was.
Yeah.
And we went in and on our way out, oh God, I feel absolutely really drained.
Yeah.
And we looked back and it was actually a cancer ward, quite a heavy ward.
You would have been drained.
So without knowing your energy's going, boom, you're pumping out just naturally out here. So you have to be aware in those.
That's right, yeah.
And it's not that you can't give that love and compassion, absolutely, but also you have to reserve your own energy
That's
levels.
Right.
Nobody should ever feel drained through any form of healing. I don't feel anyway.
Well, that's actually just answered a little good question, because I get asked a lot, and I don't know if about your messages, but people feel guilty that they've asked the spirit world to take them when they've been so poorly.
Yeah.
Never feel guilty, because you're wishing them in a better place. Spirit will only take you, yourself, that's the carer, so far, because you're shattered. You're mentally and physically drained when somebody goes off to the world of spirit. And then you have to rebuild yourself. That's what you're doing, rebuilding yourself. So when somebody said, oh God, please take them, and then they go, I felt guilty because they went. I said, never feel guilty, ever. Yeah. They're fine. They've grown. They're back to where they are. They're youthful. They've got, who would wants to go back to 85? Not me, thank you very much.
What are your thoughts on, because I get asked this a lot and I've sort of got my own thoughts on it, when people say, oh, I wasn't there, I stepped out the room and they went.
That happened last night. Right. That happened last night in a message. You're not meant to be there, because people think that if you're holding the hand and you're wishing them away, you're holding them with love. So you're not separating between the earth plane and the spirit world. Let them do the job. And many people, they phoned us up and said they're not going. I've gone, come away. Yeah. Come away, or turn your back and look out the window. Yeah. And then that way, then the spirit world then can take them, because they're the ones that decide when they're going to go home. So if your loved one's around the bed and they don't want to go, they'll keep it longer and longer, because they've got the link there, the love link. So never feel guilty.
I did a poem about it last year, and it was something that I felt really passionate about this concept, about the way we look at death. And actually it's a celebration. We're moving away from all wearing black and we're all crying. And actually understanding and having what you were saying earlier on about the young kids coming up, and there will be a period of time there might not be things like funerals, because we just have this pure acceptance that there is death, there's life, there's death, and in a way it is selfish of us to expect our loved ones to be given permission, give them your love, because you can hold them back, can't you?
Yeah. Well, when you're actually on that point where people don't want a funeral service anymore. That is, somebody says, how can we deal with it? I said, well, the ones who want a funeral service, just go in your lounge, have a cup of tea, send a little prayer of love out to them, and know that, and even ask somebody to come round and, do a little blessing for them, because obviously I have taken funeral services myself, but they've not been miserable.
You wouldn't want to,
unless it was a very young person, I've got to say, but let's have the laughter of their life. Let's have the good times.
A lot of people are doing what you call celebrations of life, and aren't they? Things. That's another sign of the way we treat death is changing.
Yes.
And I think that's awareness, what you talked about at the beginning.
That's right.
Being more aware and more connected, which is really, for me, more our natural state that we've probably been in before.
That's right.
Where we sort of accept it's not something weird.
No.
It's our natural
way. It's just like going from one door to another. And Spirit talk about life is everlasting. So if you're here for 75, 85 years, in that existence, this is just a blip.
Blink of an eye.
A massive blip. And if you go back and you think, well, how can you relive your life? Well, all you have to do now for a second is go, well, it's a bit younger for me, lads, but go back to the age of 55. And then all of a sudden go back to the age of 45, 35, go back to a child. Your life is a blip of that time, and that's how to work it out. You can think of what you've done, and that's all it is. Yeah. And choosing as well, would I like to come down here again? Not in your life, thank you very much. Not in your life, I've been through enough.
They say, Jeanette, that, obviously talking about a little bit about your life, you've had your ups and downs, and you've chosen a bit more of a difficult path.
Yes.
But the lessons that we learn, there's the easy path or the hard path, and the lessons and the experiences that you had is probably made you grow and given you the understanding. And maybe next life you'll sit there in the Buddha on the mountain there meditating and saying, oh, and this is why, in a way,
I'm too nosy. I've been wanting to know what you're all doing. I'm like, this is what they're doing here, a bit of a cup of tea and a chocolate biscuit, and I'm there for a conversation to hear what's going on.
But this is where I think sometimes when you look at people and you say, oh, they've got it easy, maybe they had more of a difficult life.
Correct.
In the past, or they're preparing for.
That's right.
So we never judge people and the lives that they live. No. And this is what I've always thought, that life I've chosen, and I haven't always had it easy, that it's part of my learning, my karma, that it's part of the lessons I've chosen. Yeah. And that humbled me to think, oh, I'm a medium, I'm this. And actually it's put me like with everybody else. It's just we do different work. And it's been amazing.
There's one way I look about it. You ask about Colin, because he's obviously now in the world of spirit, will be in this room listening, without a doubt. But when he went back to world of spirit, he didn't realise how many people he actually helped with that link. And I said to him, not a few hours before, you've helped a lot of people, and you're not going to realise it. Now, what's happening is the people he's helped now come home to world of spirit and go and say hello to him.
Wow.
And say thank you. You don't do it for that, but that's what's happening. Yeah. He's met all his family.
And it's rippled out to the people they've then been helped with. That's rippled out in their family.
That's right. That's right. They're all going up saying thank you very much. You did this, you did that, and did the other. And when I see him now, he's tall. Sometimes I've seen like a different species. I'm wording this careful because he was a very knowledgeable man. So he's more than a humanoid. He's a spiritual person, a spiritual being that I see is very tall, very proud, and a beautiful light around him.
Wow, that's so inspirational. People watching to have that understanding, that clarity, when you do have a loved ones that do go, go back to spirit, that you have that understanding, that knowledge and that respect. And an understanding about your partner,
That's
that
right.
they're all right.
That's right.
That they're okay.
Well, Wolf actually came through once and he said, we gave a call out that we wanted 2 people to come in do this work for a certain length of time. He says, and you 2 turned up. Yeah. You 2 turned up.
Are you listening, Chris?
You answered the call.
You've answered the call. Yeah, without a doubt. So anybody out there who's struggling, don't think that the evidence is not good enough. I always say in a training circle, you give 1 item per week in an open circle. In 52 weeks, you've helped 52 people.
Yeah. Don't underestimate what you're doing.
Don't underestimate what you're learning. Mm-hmm. Jealousy, override it. Just do what you want to do for spirit, and don't worry about anybody.
100%. So, sort of looking forward. I know in a few months, I think it's in July, we've got you sort of back with us doing a wonderful demonstration with Jenny.
Yes.
But what other things have you got coming up? Have you doing any workshops? Any on the teaching side? Or
I have. At Burnley, I'm doing a workshop. I haven't got my diary with me, so I have been naughty.
Yeah.
Yes, I have. I'm here, there, and everywhere. Yeah. There's changes going on at the minute, so I'm going back to Barnsley, the Lamp Room Theatre, on the 7th of July as well.
Yeah.
So I'm all ongoing with that at the moment. So I'm trying to grow that side of it more than the other side. Oh, I'm going to Preston in May every Saturday. I think it's about 10:30 to 2:30 every Saturday for 4 weeks to get the knowledge through for them.
Fantastic. So what we'll do is, if anybody listening to this podcast, you want to connect with Jeanette, we'll put the information either below wherever you're listening to it or watching us. So if they want to connect and see if you're in their local area, we have people watching from here, there and everywhere, then they'll be able to connect with you if they wish to do so. But it's been wonderful.
Have you enjoyed it?
I've loved it.
Should we do another one?
We'll do another.
Yeah, we'll have to do part 2.
Part 2, because I've not sat with you both for such a long time, and life has changed so much for all of us spiritually.
Yes, definitely.
Everything, so it's lovely.
It's a journey, isn't it? Dipping in and out. And something
Massive.
I said, as you know, we did a chat with Jenny Moore as well.
Yeah.
And these people as we've known you for many years.
Yeah.
But you don't know a lot about the story. There's so much more, and that's what I find fascinating. Because everybody's got a journey, everybody's got a story.
We're never on our own, and that pulls us all together.
And
it does cross over. You go, I can understand that. I've lived that as well.
Yeah.
And I think talking about it this way brings a lot of understanding.
It does.
For us all.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. So anybody out there as well, who thinks they haven't got anybody giving them the information and they're going a bit schizophrenic, join the club.
Well, I was going to say that. We're going to get locked up. We'll all be together.
We'll all be together. No, just keep going.
Normal anyway?
That's exactly it. Who's normal? What's normal? Just get on with it.
Yeah,
get on with it.
So thank you so much.
I've loved it. Thank you guys so much. I've loved it. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody, for listening as well.
Yeah, good luck on your journey. Bye.